Welcome to the Under the Hat podcast,
the show where we talk about everything and anything that is top of mind in education.
The goal is to provide meaningful conversations to what is currently happening in our classrooms.
Stories, pains,
moments of success.
We want to hear it all.
Friends, welcome back to another episode of Under the Hat. We are on episode 58. Making number sense common. Super excited to be chatting about math. If you really know me, you know that math is not my wheelhouse, but I'm always keen to learn from my math friends and people that are really successful in that space. So one little quick thing though, you'll notice that on a somewhat consistent basis up to this point, Sophie has not been on the pod. So Sophie's taking a little hiatus and for no real reason other than life is lifing right now. You know that she's in her doctoral program doing all of that work. So we are giving her that space. I'm giving her that space to take care of those things. So super excited though for this episode. So I believe this is somebody that you've seen on the pod before. When he did all the March Madness stuff with the Eduprotocol friends back last March. So a little bit about the guest that we have today. So this person is super passionate about helping people understanding the use of technology in the classroom. She has dedicated herself to helping teachers, students, and administrators become more effective in the use of ed tech. Love that. She firmly believes that technology should be used to promote creativity, collaboration, communication, critical thinking, those 4 C's. She has also developed a variety of online resources, including online tutorials and webinars. She is a Google certified teacher and trainer, co-author of the Eduprotocol Field Guide Math Editions. We'll be hearing a lot about MathReps, I'm sure. Welcome, friend Lisa Nowakowski. Thank you for being here.
Hi, thank you so much for having me on. This is super fun. Super excited to be here. Yes, I love math. I know there's a lot of elementary teachers that I hear who are like, "Oh, I don't really like math. I don't know how to teach math. I didn't do well in math. I'm not a math person." So I secretly love and hate hearing that all at the same time. Like, oh, it breaks my heart that people are saying those things, but it also is like, oh, but wait, like you can do this. Like it is fun. It is really exciting. So yes, very passionate about it.
Yeah. I just have my own memory of. Let me get the AI camera there. I just have this memory of being a math student myself, and maybe you, Lisa, we were maybe in the era where there was the transparencies in front of the room, and then the teacher just
I
writes
love
on
that
it.
you think I'm that young. So keep going.
Oh, okay, cool. All right, leading into this. So that was my memory of it, right? And it was also like everyone's in rows, everyone's copying the exact same thing, and then we left, right? Like it was.
Yeah.
I remember feeling utterly confused and never knew. I just stayed quiet, and I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing, and then that snowballs, right? Year after year, and then you're an adult, and you're like, wait, what's a quadratic formula?
Right.
So really keen to dive into that in a bit. But first, for those that are watching, listening in the car, what have you, those that don't know you, maybe a little bit about your context, your journey, and how you got into education.
I don't know if we want that whole story. It is an interesting story of how I got into education. I hear all of these really great, interesting stories about they were inspired. There was a teacher who inspired them. I did have a teacher who did inspire, have me look at things differently in education as far as teachers go. When she was one of my eighth grade teachers. So I went through 12 years of Catholic education. So it was very, very methodic. It was, and I love that you think we had transparencies. God, I love that. We did not. We had chalkboards. And yes, we were supposed to in rows. Yes, it was all of those things. But as far as getting into education, I didn't have that journey. I actually started off going into college, and I was going to be a physical therapist, and that was my dream from elementary
Mm,
school all the way up through college. And the college I went to was based on um, it was one of the top physical therapy schools in the state. So I grew up in Michigan as well. So I grew up in the
mm,
Detroit area. And so I got there, and then I changed majors. I was like, okay. So I kind of switched. I was like, oh, let's go into nursing. I want to go into nursing then. Okay. And then I was like, nope. I distinctly um, interesting job. Telemarketing. If you've never done telemarketing, it is interesting, let me tell you. So that was a summer job that I had. And I remember going through the list at my college because I didn't want to change schools, and going through the list of college majors in my college. And I was like, I know, went through all of them. There was nothing that I was like remotely interested in. I was like, oh, all right, fine. Let's go through the list again and let's see what we have. And I was like, elementary education, because in Michigan, you can get a degree in education. So I was like, cool, elementary education. Hey, we're early enough in the alphabet. I went through the rest of the alphabet. And I was like, well, elementary education it is. So it's not a very inspiring story to tell the truth, but it ended up being a really good journey. My college had several. You got to go into classrooms throughout your whole journey of being, becoming an educator. So this was way back in the 90s, so long time ago. Um, and so even before you got into the program, they were like, we are putting you in a classroom, and we're putting you in this introductory class of education. They're like, we do not want you to go through this entire program and then get to your student teaching and go, ooh, this isn't for me. So
mm,
I really loved that journey that they were like, we're going to put you in. And so my first stint was in a kindergarten classroom. And now I'm going to date myself, because it was when you grow up, one of the girls said she wanted to be a fly girl. Now, if you don't know what that is, I'm just going to say it was in Living Color. They had fly girls who were the dancers, and J-Lo was actually a dancer back then. So like, that's how old I am. That is how long and how many stories that I can tell. But yeah, it was really good journey. And then I just kind of grabbed onto it from there. And I was always kind of that teacher, even in my college prep days, of like, how can we do things differently? And it just kind of
mm.
always gravitated towards doing things differently. I don't know where that came from. My creative side, I have no idea. But so that's how I got into education. And then getting into Eduprotocols came through meeting John Crippo through Q. And my first foray and the inspiration behind MathReps itself, and we can talk a little bit more about what MathReps are, is I watched him do something, and it was called 8 parts of speech. And you have a picture. For those people who don't know, you have a picture, and then in that picture, you pick out what are the nouns, the adjectives, the verbs, and the different parts of speech, and then you bring them all together and write a paragraph about it. And I was like,
Mm,
that is brilliant. I love that.
mhm,
And because I have a math brain, and I hate saying that, but my dad, and I would talk to my dad about this. He brainwashed me as a child. He often did the brainwashing as a child. And he would just like, he's like, oh no, you're really good at math. You're like me, you're really good at math. And my dad was very, very good at math. And so he would brainwash me, you're good at math. So I just believed I was good at math. Sure, I'm great at math. And oh gosh, now I forgot where I was going with this story. Oh, 8 parts of speech. So I was like, oh, I can do this with math. And so I sat down and I was like, okay, I can do this. And then I quickly realized 8 parts of speech is one thing, and you can do it with one generic, template. Math is a whole other beast, and there are lots of different components to it, and you can't do it with one. So I ended up sitting down and just doing it from me and my class. I was teaching fifth grade at the time, um, and I was like, okay, so I noticed my students at the beginning of the year, we would do all of the number sense things. So we would do place value and the expanded form and, multiplying and dividing and all those great things. And then second trimester, and that's all that middle part of the year, you hit the fractions part, right? And then fractions take over your life. And then the end of the year comes and you have to prep them for the state test. And then you have to get in geometry and all of those other really great things. And they've forgotten everything that they've learned in first trimester. So I went in that school year and I was like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to have this thing and we're going to do this same template every day so that they really solidify some of these concepts. And so I created my first math rep. It was just for me. I wrote about it on my blog and I tagged John in it, and it kind of evolved and snowballed and blew up, and a book was created, and now we have math reps for kindergarten through high school, and it's a whole thing, and it's amazing, and I've loved the journey. That was a
That's
really
great.
long intro.
No, that's great. No, that's great. So was it one of those things where like John just saw what you were doing and we're like, wait, we need to amplify this? Like, is that
Yes. So I have a story for that one too. I have a story for everything.
we're here for it?
Awesome. I was at Fall Q one year, and it was
Mm.
when Fall Q was up in
Napa?
America. Yes, up in Napa. So if you know John, that's really fitting that this happened at a food truck. We were at a
Yeah.
food truck, and he was talking to somebody, and he was like, "Oh my God, Lisa, come over here." And he was talking to whoever it was. He's like, "You've got to hear what she did with these things," and they weren't even called math reps at the time. He's like, "You got to
Mm.
hear what she did with this math thing." And so, like, he just started spreading the word about it, and then we decided that it had to have a name for it, and I'm terrible at coming up with names. So my podcast partner at the time was Nancy Minikotzi. Shout out to Nancy.
Mm.
I was texting her. I'm like, "Hey, I need a name," and like we're doing, and she knew what I was doing, and she was the one that came up with the name MathReps. Great. And MathReps has evolved. So MathReps used to be 2 words. Apparently, between book 1 of Eduprotocols and my book, which is book 3, I have then smushed the word into MathReps 1 word. Who knew that? Somebody pointed that out to me one day. I was like, "Oh yeah, look, I did that." So I often change like whatever my brain is thinking at the time. So yeah,
Mm.
John kind of took off with it, and then he was doing a lot of presenting at the time on his Eduprotocols and was starting to integrate some of the math reps into it, and it evolved even more from there. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I do see that you're the co-author of the field
Yes.
guide. Who else is involved in that book? I apologize. I've read the social studies one for obvious reasons, right? So maybe I should go read the math reps one. I might learn something. But like, so who else was involved in that project?
Marlene and John were involved in that project, and then
Oh,
my
okay.
amazing co-author Jeremiah Roosh, who
Mm.
is what is he? He's a college professor now, rightfully
Mm.
so, at Pacific. No, I can't remember the name of the college right now.
Mm.
It's on the tip of my tongue. I can picture the logo. I just can't name it because I'm a little nervous right now. So, yes. But he's amazing. He's an inspiration. Neither one of us can take a compliment. So, like, we will compliment the heck out of each other, and we think each other is amazing. Like, I think he's brilliant. So, very
Yeah.
lucky to have him.
Yeah. I hear like just talking with people like at conferences and giving PD and stuff, like one thing that comes up in conversation is like, oh, I have all these these really good ideas. I want to get it in a book somehow. So maybe like, I don't know, like what was that process like, right? Like to draft a book. Certainly the co-author part of that is very collaborative, right?
Yeah.
But maybe I've heard, not saying you, but like others were like, it can be a challenge, right? Drafting a book with someone else other than just yourself. Very keen to hear like what your experience was with that.
I felt, I can't speak for Jeremiah or John and Marlena, but I felt like it was really great and organic. We actually wrote it in the middle of the pandemic when we were in shutdown. So we
Mhm.
were in the process of writing it. We had started it. So 2019, March of 2019, Jeremiah and I had sat down at Spring Q that year in Palm Springs, and we were like, okay, we know we're going to do this. John had already approached us and said, hey, this is the vision that I have. I was on board with it. He suggested a couple people. I was like, Jeremiah is it. I had seen him present. I'm like, this guy is fantastic. Like, his approach to math is so accessible to people, especially if you don't understand the math. Like, he just breaks it down in such a beautiful way. And so I think this is the guy, right? And so we sat down and we started sketching things out in spring of 2019. And then we were in full-fledged writing mode just about the time the pandemic hit. And so throughout the 2019-2020 year, we were writing. It was pretty organic. I found it easy. I got along with everybody. I would
Mm.
write my little blurbs. Jeremiah would write his little blurbs. We would kind of trade back and forth on each other. We would comment on each other's things. And I just have such respect, and he has such respect for everybody who was involved in the project, that it just felt really good. It was a completely positive experience, and I would love to, repeat that experience with those people again.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. So the MathReps themselves,
Yes.
maybe a little bit. So just context where I'm coming from with
Yes.
this. So at the university level, when I go in and I observe a student teacher, um, some they would give me like social studies candidates, but
Mhm.
sometimes I have to go in to a PE class and a math class, which is fun for me because I'm like, I love living outside of my own comfort zone and domain. Like, I'm like, oh, I never thought about doing that, but I can use that in a social studies class. So, but often when I go into the math class, it's kind of interesting where I kind of see a lot of what I saw when I was a kid. Kind of, if we can loop it back to that,
Yeah.
right? So that stand and deliver for sometimes literally 50 minutes, and then
Mhm.
some sort of like passive exit ticket on the way out. Um, Lack of checking for understanding, right? Just like a
Yeah.
quiet room, a whole lot of modeling. Not like I do, you do. It's like all I. Um, and so that's kind of where I'm really interested in learning from you is like, so what are math reps and how does it change the math learning compared to that traditional format?
I love that you brought up that it is college. So, Jeremiah, I did remember, it is Fresno Pacific that he works at.
Okay.
He is a math teacher at Fresno Pacific. And he uses all different math Eduprotocols in his college class. And he
Mm,
has the kids getting up and he's having them, do the math 360. So where they're going up and it's all around the room on the walls. And he's having them explore all of those things. And he sent pictures the other day, and it was really exciting to see. Like, he does a lot of those things. So his classroom looks very different than the traditional, um, sit and get sort of math classroom situation where he's explaining it. He does a lot of those things. So MathReps, just specific, is just one, of the math Eduprotocols. So MathReps in particular is, imagine, for those who don't know, you have concepts like, the first one that I did has something like 7 to 9 standards represented on it, which is insane. So it starts off with, you have a number of the day. So I, as the teacher, just give a
mm,
number of the day. And I, as the teacher, like to pawn that off on the student of the day. So you come up with the number of the day. So I'm not even doing anything, right? And so they come up with a number. And so now you take that number, depending on the grade level that you're in. Like I said, I was in fifth grade when it started. And so we had decimals. So, okay, so now you're going to take that number and it's going to be, multiply that by 10, multiply that by 100. Now multiply that by 1,000, or 10 to the third power, I think I have written on it. Now you're going to take your answer from 10 times greater and 100 times greater, and you're going to add them together, and then you're going to find a number that is greater than and less than the actual number of today, but after the decimal, so you couldn't make it bigger, so you had to understand decimals. And then you
Mm.
do the same thing with like dividing it by 100, dividing it by 10. Now you're going to subtract those. And the tricky part and the brilliant part about this, and like if you're an elementary teacher, probably middle school teacher as well, you know that we have taught them year after year how to regroup across zeros, because 0 subtract 3 is 3 in a lot of children's minds. And so we talk about that, and with the subtraction part of it, they have to regroup across a 0 every single day. So they get it
Mm.
stuck in their heads, right? And so like there's all these different components, and how does the decimal point relate to the percentage? How does it relate to fractions? All of those are represented on one page. When I first started it worked really, I mean, it worked well at the end too, but the students had changed, and our math curriculum had some changes. So it was really great. And so we would kind of do these things. So they were practicing how to add with decimals, how to subtract across zeros, how to subtract, with the decimals, all of these great things. And they're hitting it every
Mhm.
day. And it's kind of like your warm up review. And you can do this with, in about 8 to 10 minutes a day. So like they can do it and then you check it immediately. There's your immediate feedback and you're done. On Fridays, I would use it as an assessment tool. So, like, hey, where are you at with all of these different standards? Really, really great things are happening. And so I've done it in first grade with students, and they have blocks and manipulatives. So, like, I brought out some blocks. So, like, they might have blocks and they'll be doing it with the blocks, and then they can translate it. So, they're using that concrete model, and then they can translate it onto their paper. So, they're kind of getting all of the different representations of it. Then I went into multiplication and division. And so they're getting practice with multiplication and division every day. And the beautiful part about it is they would see the different representations of multiplication. So they would, and then the algorithm in fifth grade, and they can see how each one of them are related. And then we would talk about, like, look at the area model and look at how, like, when we add these numbers together, you can go ahead and, like, this translates to this partial product over here, and starting to make those connections for kids. Because I'm sure, and we still do this, we teach math in these isolated concepts. And then
Mm.
we don't always connect them, like, hey, this area model looks like, this is the area model, and this is the partial product, and this is the algorithm, and this is how they all connect together. This is why the area model, which kids love so much, works for this is how it connects to the area model, or I mean the algorithm. So it was really good for some of my students who'd be like, oh, I get it now. So that was really
Yeah.
fun. And so
It
you can do that at the upper levels too, but I would use and Jeremiah could probably help you out more with this, but different math Eduprotocols. So you can do something called sous chef, which is where at the end of a unit, like mid to an end of a unit, I did it with fractions. So adding fractions, right? So you have adding fractions in the fifth grade. Excuse me. So then you have the adding fractions in fifth grade. So I would have like a group of 3 or 4 students together and say, okay, you're doing the area model of it. You're doing this model of it. You're doing the algorithm of it. And they're like, got it. So each kid does it. And then they all present it. So it's on a, slide deck of some sort, and then they all present it. And so if you have, 30 kids in the classroom and you're putting them in groups of 3, they are hearing the same thing 10 times. How did they get this? How did they get that? So they're hearing it all also as well. They're not paying attention all 10 times. I understand that. I have met human children, right? But they're hearing it, and they'll hear it, 7 times maybe. Like they're zoning out 3 of the times, right? Because they're
which really underscores the reps part of it though, right?
yes,
Like it makes the reps even more critical because of that reality.
yeah, exactly. And then if you're doing these, so if I teach that whole thing with sous chef, and if you're familiar with Eduprotocols, Iron Chef is generally like an anticipatory set, what we would call it, like at the beginning of a lesson. John and I had a lot of conversations, because at first it was called Iron Chef, and he's like, you can't do that. And so we kind of went back and forth on the reasoning why. because this is a concept, like the kids have to have an understanding of the concepts in order to be able to present it. So it's not something that they do, at the beginning of a lesson. So it's more of a culminating
Mm,
sort of activity. And that while there is a time limit on it, the time limit on an Iron Chef is to get them, excited and jazzed, and like, there's a pressure there. We don't want that pressure for math, because that already there's already that pressure and that stigma of kids, who are like, I'm not good at math, and like the time like gives them the anxiety. But rather we use what's called Parkinson's law, which is you give them the exact amount of time like that they're going to need. So if an activity is going to take 10 minutes, you might give them 12 minutes, because like, let's face it, human children and humans in general, like, I'm going to take a hot minute to get myself going. So, you just give them the amount of time, and then explain that that's the reason for the time limit. And I always use timers in my classroom to keep me on track. So,
mm.
it was just part of our life when you're in my classroom. Like, I needed the timers, and it was always on me, excuse me, that I needed the timers. So it didn't stress them out as much. And then if you have kids who were still struggling with some of the concepts, and maybe they had to do the area model of the fractions, adding the fractions. Great, and you all have the same slide deck to do. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. You all come back with me, and we're going to work on it together. So that they can still be successful, but they had that support that they needed. And then sometimes other kids can go off and they'll work with like, the algorithm people, but they're still presenting with their own little groups, showing the three different methods all at once.
Yeah. I to go back to like when you first started with this explanation, and like most, if not all, Eduprotocols, the genius behind it, I think, really is pulling in multiple standards, multiple
Yeah.
skills very seamlessly, right? And like when you first called that out, we're like, oh, it's like 7, maybe 9 standards. I'm like, whoa, that's. And the other part of that too, you kind of talked about how we teach mathematical concepts in isolation of each other, which I guess at the surface area kind of makes logical sense. Like if you're not an educator, you're just starting, like, yeah, they have to know how to do this before they do this. But like it's your ability to explain the importance of the connections of it all really makes for really deep learning and the longevity of the learning too, right? Where things will
Yeah.
just naturally stick. I think that's super smart. Like those, like for me, those two things is what, if I were listening to this for the first time, I'd be like, I'm sold. I get that. And it's like anything else. Like the big thing that John talks about is like, yeah, it's super effective, but now your life's also better. Like there's
Yeah.
that reality of it too.
Yeah. And it's easier. And it does stick with the kids. So going back to the math rep that I do at the beginning of the year for fifth grade, I talked about adding and subtracting with decimals in it.
Mm,
So at the end of the school year, so we have gone through several, cycles of math reps. And so for those of you who are wondering, you kind of stick with a math rep for 6 to 8 weeks. Um, at the end of 8 weeks, if they still aren't, as a class, having mastery in it, let it go. If you don't let it go, you're going to drive yourself insane. Sometimes those kids just need a break from that concept, and that's okay. Start a different math rep. And then in the middle of that second math rep, you pull in that first math rep that you did at the beginning of the year. They freak out that first Monday, right? So you stick with it, for a whole week at that point. They freak out on that Monday, like, oh my God, I forgot all this stuff. They didn't. They just need that reminder. So it's that spiral review, right? Um, and so, like, by Tuesday of that week, they're like, oh, yeah, 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 I remember. And that concept that they were having difficulty in, um, they actually start to understand, because they needed a break from that concept for a while for it to kind of sink in and solidify. So you're going to use anywhere between, I don't know, depending on your class, you could get through maybe 6 math reps in a year, depending. You might use only 4 math reps in a year. And that is absolutely fine. Like I said, it just depends on your students. So one of the last years I was in the classroom, I had my students, we were doing it, and then my partner teachers and I were getting ready for the state test. And so we were pulling some questions out. And we pulled out a relatively, what I thought was a relatively easy one. And my students they had no problem with it. It dealt with money. So if you're,
Mm.
you buy this, and this. So basically you're adding decimals is what you were doing. My students had no problem with it. They were like, sure, boop, 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 boop. And they got it all right. I was like, cool. So when we met with my partner teachers, they were like, oh, my class, one teacher said, oh, my class had a lot of difficulty. They didn't know what to do with a decimal. They were putting it here, there, and everywhere. They just didn't know what to do with it. I was like, oh, that's really weird. Like my class did really well on that particular question. And so I was like, I wonder why. And I really did wonder why. I mean, secretly, I was hoping it was MathReps, but it was right. Like you always want to be like, you always want to feel like, aha, I was right. So I did go back to my class that year because I built great relationships with my class, and I explained the situation to them. And I said, we did really well, but like one of the other classes didn't do so well because they didn't know what to do with the decimal. I'm like, I'm curious, what is it that you guys think happened? And I'll never forget. It was a boy named Isaiah. He just raised his hand. He's like, oh my God, Miss N, you made us do all of those math reps. And they always had, and there were a couple math reps that did have addition and subtraction with the decimals on it. You had us doing those addition and subtraction with decimals all over those math reps. We just know how to do it now. So it was curious that he had made that connection, and the rest of the class was like, yeah, like we were doing that all the time, so we know how to do it. Like we've had a lot of practice in it. So while they didn't understand that the reps were helping them, they understood that that the reps that they were doing and constantly practicing it did actually help them in this particular case. So that was really fun to see.
Yeah.
And I know, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No. I'm just listening. I'm just reacting to
I
it all.
could
Yeah.
I could talk forever, and I always think like I'm generally okay. People who know me are like, you're not quiet, but I am kind of a quiet person. I don't do small talk really well. But when you get me on this subject, I could talk forever. So yes, I've seen data from other classrooms, because now I'm out of the classroom and I'm an instructional
Mm.
coach slash tech TOSA in my district. So I've seen data from other districts who are consistently using MathReps, and they are seeing an improvement in their math test scores, both on their iReady and their state testing. So depending on what state they're in. California, New Jersey, I think there's one, I want to say Wyoming, I'm not sure on that one, but I've seen them from different ones, and they are definitely seeing an improvement. So that's exciting too, to know that you're making a difference in students' lives.
And that's such an important thing right now, because what I see, a lot of conversation, social media conversation, educators and non-educators, like I'm talking like communities of just like people are really just like hounding on the fact that our kids are not reading as well as the past. We are not
Mhm.
performing as well in mathematics, right? And so, like, hearing is twofold for me. Like, one is like the fact that we do have strategies that can work, like Eduprotocols and MathReps. And two, kind of what like hearing you describe, like in your current role on the instructional coach side, is like you're starting to see at least some you're seeing the needle move, right? Where like,
Yeah.
oh, those that are adopting it, we have that data now to prove that it does make a difference, and it is making, it's making progress. I guess the question is like, how do you do this at scale, right? And that's what I always think about. I'm like, especially if it's something's effective, how do we get it in more places, in more spaces?
I think you just keep talking about it, right? Like I started
Mm,
MathReps. It's been 10 years now since I think I created my first one. I think it was 2015
mm,
that I had created my first one. And it's slowly but surely getting out there. Again, teachers, and I've heard teachers talk, you know, I don't understand how to do this kind of division, so I'm just going to teach the algorithm. Oh,
Mm,
but you don't teach sixth grade, like you teach it below sixth grade, and so for
mm,
those who don't know, Common Core Math has standard algorithm for division at sixth grade. Like that is a sixth grade standard. It used to be like I think fourth grade previous to Common Core. So they're like, I just don't understand how to do this area model or, these different models. And it confuses the kids too. I think what's happening is it's confusing teachers. And I'm not going to lie, I was one when I first saw how to divide fourth grade math and how they kind of break it down in the division. I didn't get it. I didn't understand it. I had to I was looking at it. It baffled my mind. I wasn't teaching it. I was very happy that I wasn't teaching it, but it baffled my mind. And so there is a teacher in my district, and I went to her and I was like, "Can I see you teach this?" And she was like, "Yes." And so I watched her, and I actually filmed her, and I posted it recently. Her name is Jessica, and the way she breaks it down for the kids was just amazing. So I think part of it is all of these different ways. And I remember talking to my dad. I'm like, "Dad, like this new, what they're calling new math." I said, "I think it's just the math that you did when you were growing up." And he was talking. He's like, "Yeah, when I grew up, they would teach these different concepts, how to," and going back to number sense, right? How to break apart numbers. And so like my dad was super quick at math, and he could sit and he could multiply huge numbers in his head because he knew how to manipulate and break apart those numbers. He said, "Dad, I think that's what we're getting back to now." I said, "But
mm.
when I grew up," I said, "they didn't do that. It just went straight to just memorize it and just do it." And I said, "And because you brainwashed me to think I was good at math." And then he giggled and said, "Yes, I did." Uh, he was very proud of himself at that one. Um, he's like, "Yeah." I said, "I could do it." I said, "But I didn't understand all the concepts or how to break it apart." I said, "And I'm learning that now with, doing all these different things, like looking at, um, how to build out math reps and things like that, and how to, build this out for students. Like I'm learning. So it's all still a learning journey, I think, for all of us. I forget what the
Yeah,
original question was, and I go
me
off on
too.
tangents.
It's okay. No, so we had my daughter Riley, she's in third grade, right? And so I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if this is like the norm, but like second grade to third grade, academically, let's just talk about that.
Uh-huh.
Academically is a bit of a shift, right? Like homework starts to be more consistent, and the volume of it is different. But so Riley's starting to do addition, but larger numbers now, right? Like 343 against like
Yep.
568. Add
Yep.
those, right? And so I have this memory of my being around, but like my wife was like helping her with her homework, or my wife's just like, "Oh, this is how you do it." And like Riley was like, "No, it's not how we're doing." And then again, I'm not using
The
the correct
age-old
verbiage.
argument, right? With
Yeah, yeah,
parents in math.
yeah, yeah, and then it was, and I'm part of that too. I'll add it the way that we were taught, right, or that way I was
Right.
taught. But and Riley's like, "No, no, no, this is how you do it." And she pulled out like some scratch paper, and she just like started jamming out all these little circles, and
What
like
was that?
it was like a diagram that didn't make intuitive sense to the two older folks in the room.
Right.
Um, but then it comes into like, oh, if she didn't do it exactly correct, then we're like, wait, how do we help her, kind of thing, right? Like it's like conceptually not knowing what
Hmm.
that difference is. And it's the chicken scratch of an 8-year-old too. So there's that problem. But I think Angela, my wife, I think she did catch like what it was. She's like, oh, and we had the conversation of like, it's actually teaching her why it is the way that it is, and not
Yeah.
necessarily like, "Oh, I know
I
5
have to regroup. I
plus
have to
4." Yeah,
carry.
it
Yeah.
it well, and it's, yeah, but it's like it's understanding like why we make those steps,
Yeah.
right? And so especially like in things like division, or no,
Yeah.
like dividing fractions. Why do you flip? Like why do you flip that fraction, right? And I had
Yeah.
that realization in college. I had kind of a he was an old school professor, right? But he was actually doing that kind of teaching before it was cool to do so.
Nice.
Or maybe it's the way he was taught, kind of what you're saying, like your dad was like, oh, that's the way that we did it. It's just like maybe cyclical, pendulum swinging of
Yes.
education. Um, but it's that understanding of why we do the things that we do, right? Um, and to me, at the end of the day, even if it slows down the process, I think the understanding of why is more important than getting it done faster.
Oh, beautiful. Absolutely 100% agree with that. Yeah. And I love that your daughter was able to say no and then explain the whole process. Like that is amazing because that tells you she's understanding it because she can explain it. I think that's so beautiful.
Yes, yes.
And and you talked
Good.
about your daughter and like how like third grade kind of has that shift.
Mm,
Third grade has, I think, one of I think they have the most standards that they need to teach between math and language arts. They have, I think, total when you break down, so it'll have like one standard, but within that one standard, there's really like four big standards, right? 94 standards, I believe, just between those two subjects. And that
mm.
includes, all of the literature and, writing and speaking and all of those things. 94 standards between ELA and math in third grade. So that means you have to master basically a new standard every other day. That's crazy. Like,
And this is why teachers should be making more money. This is crazy. And to make matters, I guess, a little bit more complicated for Riley, she's in a dual immersion school. So she has
oh
to
yes.
bounce back and forth like, oh, articulating this in English, articulating in
Mhm.
Spanish, and it's a whole different thing. Um, but
Yeah,
like,
we have dual language immersion in my district too. So we started with kinder last year, so now we have kinder and first this year. So we're
I
slowly building it up.
I love that. I like
Yeah.
if we can have more of that just everywhere. That would be great. Yeah. So like, but going back to what you said about like a standard and a half a day, like that seems so daunting, right?
Yeah.
Um, what perhaps is not getting really tackled in teacher prep, and that's just the space that I'm in, right? Like the credentialing
Hmm.
process is perhaps like training these folks how to do what you're describing, right? Like how do you just bring more standards together in more seamless ways?
Yeah.
That's not this like process that takes like hours and hours to do, right? Um, I just I don't know. I just have to double click on that because like I think that's such an important piece of how you become an effective educator is like dealing with those standards and keeping them uh together in a seamless way. Yeah, and Sophie's calling out like like
Hmm.
the PBL piece. She knows that that's my thing, my jam. But like the project-based learning, right? The actual application of what they're doing with math. I love that. I love that. Um, so you're also in Lisa, you're also in the space of like educational technology, right?
Yeah.
We've not even dropped an ed tech tool yet, um, which is fitting because I really love talking about the pedagogy before I even dive into any type of, you know, implementation of a tool.
Hmm.
So with MathReps, especially with like you talked a lot about like the elementary context, and this possible need for tech integration, but also being mindful of like screen time and like
Oh yeah, for sure.
all of cell phones and like my daughter's in third grade and I'm already starting to see kids like roll into school with iPhones. I'm like,
Yep.
what? That's crazy town. Um, so what tools do you recommend with things like Eduprotocols, MathReps with the elementary space in mind?
I'm a huge fan, and I know people do it with technology. I'm a huge fan of paper and pencil. quite honestly.
Fair.
When I did MathReps, even though it was fifth grade, it was I unfortunately killed trees. There are better ways. So yes, so I see Sophie has written like dry erase markers, laminate,
Mm.
print things. One of my favorite new things, so you have those plastic sleeves that they now sell. So there is a teacher in New Jersey, it's Maria Gallagher. And this is brilliant. She went on Amazon, I have now done this too, and she bought the menus, clear plastic menus, so it holds 4. So you can have 4 math reps all at once, right? So, right? Brilliant, right? And
That's
I tell it,
cool.
so shout out to Maria for that one. Yeah, so she's done that. I have so Wipe Book, WIPEBOOK.
Mhm.
They actually have second and third grade math reps available on their platform. So, and I don't make any money off of it. I've just given them license to I worked with them to create it. So there are 4 really good solid math reps that you can get from Whitebook, which is amazing. If you want to try and integrate technology, which I am for, if that is your thing, you're like, no, I can do it. Jennifer Dean has done an amazing job, her and Ben Cogswell, who wrote the
Mm.
primary edition of the Eduprotocols books. They use Seesaw. And so there's an entire thing of math reps on Seesaw for you to use. I'm working currently with Snorkel. So if you don't know Snorkel, Snorkel is amazing, right? Shout out to Snorkel, SNORKL. They are an AI technology, so you can write and the students can verbalize. They don't always have to have it. Um, and they can write and they can do all of the things and they get immediate feedback as well. So we love Snorkel. Currently, K2 is on there. I've given them the third grade ones. They're not up quite yet. I think they're kind of finalizing some things on their end. Yes, and Kami Library has K5. There's a set, not the complete set, but there are some, I think there's 4 in each grade level on Kami. So if you are a fan of Kami in the Kami library, you can just type in math reps and they are there. So
Wait,
there's
what's Cami? I'm just kidding. I used to
uh,
work there. I'm just kidding.
I should
Yes.
have known that.
No, it's okay.
Yeah, it's so they are in all different places, and you're like, I don't want any of those things, and I'm in the middle of revamping. I say I'm not doing it. Like I'm having a friend do them, and she's revamping all of the math reps. So currently K3 has been reformatted. So if you are on math reps before, like each of the formatting was a little bit different depending on who created it, depending on what my mind space was at the time. Like it makes sense to
Mm.
I have really good organization. I have terrible consistency with my organization. So whatever my organization makes sense on one day does not always make sense like 3 weeks later. But my friend is revamping all of them. She's my partner teacher as well at school. So Nicole Garcia, shout out to her, has decided, or I asked her to do them. So she has it really nicely formatted. And so they're color coded now. There's a little character. So, like first grade has a monkey and they're super cute. Second grade has frogs. Third grade has dragonflies. So there's just a little bit of consistency happening with them, and those are free. And yes, so if you want to print it from like the Kami library, you can print those for free. If you go to
Mhm.
mathreps.com, you can get any grade level you want, and you can print those for free as well. Jen and I are in heated arguments about this one. I create them on 8.5 by 11 slide decks in Google because that is
Mm.
the size of a piece of paper. John's like, no, just do it. And then when you go to print to the size of the paper. That drives me nuts because the top and the bottom leaves a gap, and I don't like that. So like I like to do it on the 8.5 by 11. So
Yeah.
we're in a little bit of a tussle with that one of like. But I've noticed that teachers are like, thank you for the 8.5 by 11. So I think I'm right.
Yeah. Yeah. Can we go? Because can we? Okay. So let's go back to this menu thing. because that was such a,
Forgot
and
to bring one
so
home too.
I
Darn
might
it.
I might be adding value to this idea, or you can be
Yes.
like, Steve, this is a terrible idea. But the first thing I thought of was like, okay, a menu, and kids are doing Eduprotocols in a menu. So I don't know if maybe this is a West Coast thing only, but like out here, especially if you're in San Francisco, there's a restaurant called Bubba Gump's.
Mm.
And Bubba, so it's themed off Forrest Gump, right? And so the what you do when you sit down at that restaurant is you have like this little like thing at the table, and you can turn it. It's like almost like a license plate that you can just turn to let the waitress know, the waiter know it, to stop by if you need something. So it's either run Forrest or stop. So I don't know, because of copyright purposes, like if you're even able to purchase those on the internet, but something like that while they're doing the math reps, since it's a menu, they'll be doing the math reps. If you can just go stop, so that way the teacher knows that that group or that student's done and they're ready for feedback. And
Ooh,
then
I
that
like
you can
that.
be really more purposeful of like how you circulate the room, right?
Ooh.
And having that visual context as an educator, like who need, or the stop could be like, I need help too, right? It's not just
Mm-hmm.
for the feedback or that I'm done, but stop for a wide range of things. And so yeah, Sophie confirmed that they do have those. I think she's looking this up wherever she's at right now, writing, doing some homework, being distracted. But yeah, so that was just, I don't know if that's adding value, but like that's from my
Oh, I
brain.
love
I
it.
wanted to share. Yeah.
No, I love it. I think that's a great idea. Yeah, as the group works together. So you can do, like you said, a group is working on a math rep. I love that idea too. As a group, they can
Mm,
work on it, and they can do it individually. They can have each other help one another.
yeah.
I love the idea of having them like something that would flag a teacher of like, we're done, we need feedback, or hey, we're stuck on this one thing, we need a little bit of help. I think all of those are great ideas, which is why I love like this educational community, because while we hear something, we always somebody was it's like more heads, right? Somebody's there to be like, oh, what about? And then they make that idea even better. So I love that. Like I never thought of, just even putting it in a clear plastic sleeve, menu folder, right? Somebody else thought of it. I think that's amazing. You're like, hey, what if we just have some sort of thing that says yes? I've never been to Bubba Gumps, which is a shameful because they have one in Monterey and I live in Monterey
Yep.
County. So like never been.
So I my truth on that, I grew up going there as a kid. And now I'm kind of like meh about it. Now that I'm paying the bill,
Yeah.
I'm like, if I'm gonna pay this much, you can get, I'm a seafood person, so I can get like better seafood elsewhere. But it is a vibe. They go in and they'll ask you a little quiz, like little trivia quiz based on the movie. Um, I have knocked that quiz out of the park, but mostly because of the reps. Because I'm like, oh, I've heard the same quiz over the years. um, but yeah, no, Bubba Gump's like it's a vibe if you've never been. Um,
All
okay,
right.
cool. So just little plugs here, Lisa. Like I know that we can go to mathreps.com. I actually have that pulled up here. And maybe I can do a quick share just to show folks if they're watching.
Yeah.
Let's see. Will it let me do it? Okay, cool. Boom. This one. Okay, sweet. We should have had that loaded beforehand. Okay, cool. Yeah. So math reps. I love how it's broken up in terms of like the grade levels. And so
Hmm.
so I can
And
just
don't
click on
be
whatever grade.
afraid when you click on one and you're like, ooh, this third grade one is really great, but I need third grade one has some of my favorite ones on it. Like so those are just two videos that explain what math reps are, and then the second video is, I forget what the second video is. And it just I think it kind of goes through how to do a math rep. I think it's a first grade one or a second grade one. I can't remember which one it is.
Mm,
But they're on all of them. So if you're like, but I'm on the second grade and it has tells me how to do a first grade math rep, I'm like the process is the same no matter what. So how it goes with the 8 mathematical practices, how it lines up with how you're going to start and progress throughout throughout the whole process. And there's just different ones. And I give an example for every single one of them because as a person, I'm very visual and I can look at it and try and figure it out. But if I see what you mean and what your thought process was, it makes way more sense to me. And I think I appreciate those sorts of things. So if I appreciate, please don't ask me about show me the number. It makes sense to me in my brain. It's a game. So what the students can do is spin, and 2 people, so you and I would be playing, we would each have our own math rep. So the one that was previous to it, we would spin, oh, look, it's on the number line. So we're gonna, find that number on the number line. It might need to be changed a little bit, oh, we have to add, or we have to subtract. So that's the only portion of that math rep that I'm going to do.
Yeah, I love this. And so cool. And you have the high school build in here.
Yes.
You have
and
templates.
Then Ariana is doing the science book. Her and Christina are doing the science book. So there's some science ones that are in there as well. But I think you can find all of their stuff on the Eduprotocols website, which I believe is Eduprotocols.
The
so there's my
Eduprotocols
co-author.
Plus.
Yes. And there's my co-author, Jeremiah, who is amazing.
He should come on too. You shared a lot of like your experiences with him. He sounds like, and he's not too far
He's
from
amazing.
me. Yeah. Sweet. That is awesome. All right. So we are about out of time, but Lisa, as you know, we always post up that question for our guests of, what is top of mind right now in education? What is something we need to be talking more about? Might be something we've already talked about, and you can underscore that. But right now, Lisa, what's under the hat for you?
So something that I've noticed is, and I don't like it. There's just been a lot of negativity towards teachers and education right now, and that makes me really sad because educators are amazing. Educators in the classroom are doing an amazing job. I feel like they're under there's a lot of things happening that they have to do, and they do it with grace. They do it with kindness, and they're doing an amazing job, and they're just not getting as much love as they absolutely deserve. So I would love just sending the positive vibes and the love and kindness back to the teachers that they share with our students and with each other. And also, if you're creating things, share. If something works, share it. That's what's under my hat.
Yeah, share that love more than just Teacher Appreciation Day.
Agreed. Even if it's just a thank you, showing grace as well, because we're all human.
Yeah, 100%. Lisa, thank you so much for being on the show. I learned a lot. I know that people are just seeing people in the chat, on Instagram and elsewhere, are, just kind of just glowing now, oh, cool. I have, even if they're not a math teacher, they're like, cool, I have more in my toolkit now, which is what we need to continue to do as educators, right? Because no one person has the universal right answer. And so we really just appreciate you being here.
Thank you. And for anybody who's worried, I give away all of my stuff for free because we're all in this together and they're all our kids. So
yes. And something I did want to mention before we pop up. So there is the Eduprotocol Facebook group, which is phenomenal. Yes. And so just want to plug that. That's a super cool, fun group. I'm actually in a fantasy football league through that group. I'm not doing well, but it was kind of fun. That I forgot who started. I don't know if it was Drew or Justin or someone. But I came across recently that, Lisa, there's a MathReps, an Eduprotocol math Facebook group as well. Is that correct?
Yes, there is. So I have a page and a group, and I know people are like, why are there 2? when Eduprotocols was getting started, MathReps was getting started at the same time. So we're kind
Mm,
of like in parallel universes with like a little wormhole between us. So like they were doing their thing, I was doing my thing. We were connected, but they weren't quite Eduprotocols yet. I was still fledgling with MathReps. So we kind of grew up together like neighbors. So, and then
yeah,
we have that gate between us on our property. So we
yeah,
support one another. So that's kind of how that happens. So yes, I do have a group, and
yeah.
I do have a page where people can go ahead and post their questions and things.
Awesome. Yeah, I love that. I just joined that group as a social studies teacher. I was like, oh, let me pop in here. But yeah, so super good. I love that you have that support. But yeah, awesome. Thank you again, friends, for listening, watching. Continue to show that love. We are dropping another episode next week. I believe we have Adam Spark of Short Answer next week. And so that one will be really fun. Love Adam. He brings a lot of value. But anyway, all right. So, friends, until next time, keep your hats on, but your minds open. Y'all take care. Bye-bye.